Good morning. I know it's like 11:42 my time, not 11:30 as was advertised. Time was supposed to be 11:30 that we're gonna start today, but when you're like, I'm gonna just set this up now, and it's like 15 minutes before you're supposed to start, and you're like, yep, I'll just get this set up now because sometimes there are issues. So you go over and it just won't connect, like Facebook, of course. Instagram's fine. Facebook won't connect to your anything, nothing will it connect to. Not a thing. So then you're like, well, I guess I'll restart and see if that helps. So then you restart, but there are 7,000 updates that your computer won't let you restart unless you do the updates. So you're like, oh good, I'll just spend 8 minutes watching you update and restart. And then when you come back, the Facebook is still not connecting, and so you have to do a whole separate thing. You have to set up a whole separate live. You know when that happens? It's delicious. It's my favorite thing. Delicious. Okay, well, so here we are. A little late. It's fine. It's fine. Little late. Okay. Yes. What are we even talking about today? I don't know. Kidding. Hey there. So, my name is Shannon Coates, Dr. Shannon Coates. And I'm coming to you live from, I've got screens all over that I have to look at, and I apologize. My eyes are going all over the place here. I am coming to you live from a little town that is north of Toronto in Ontario, Canada. And these are the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, and the Wendat Neo-Wencio peoples. And I am grateful to be able to live and work on these lands. Hey, what are we talking about today? I got a little spicy. That's a little spicy, a little bit. I mean, not crazy spicy, not over the top spicy. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Whatever. Got a little spicy because I read a post that got me all fired up from an educator who, I'm not gonna out them. It's fine. It is what it is. But this educator talked about how it's our calling as teachers in the classroom to shape the minds of our students, as well as to shape their character. And so there are, just things that don't sit right with me. First of all, okay, let me just say, it is not a problem for us as voice teachers, as teachers. I hate it when my collar's crooked. Oh, that's gonna bug me this whole thing. Okay, let's try that. First of all, it's not a bad thing to think of yourself as having a calling to be a teacher, right? That's not a bad thing. It's a calling. Great. Okay. So long as we are really clear about the fact that being called or having a calling to be a teacher does not give us carte blanche to act in whatever way we would like in a power over way, as Brene Brown talks about, to enact a power over relationship with our students because we have a calling, right? So I come from an evangelical background, as you may know. And so the idea of having a calling is quite problematic for me personally because of my background. And part of the reason that is problematic is because my issue with it is just that when we have a calling in the evangelical tradition, that tends to give us rights, perceived rights, and tends to justify behavior and justify attitudes and justify, being in the world in a certain way because we have a calling, right? Because we're called. So that is my personal thing where I'm like, ooh, are we called though? So like, just, if you have the feeling that you are called to be a voice teacher and it is your calling, amazing. And also be really clear in your own mind that what you mean by that and what sort of rights the calling gives you, what that affords you, right? Just be really clear in your own mind about that. Okay. So that was the post that kind of started me off. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to make a short little list. And I'm realizing now that the one device that I'm working on is getting down to low power. That's going to be amazing. Oh, good. Goody. Amazing. So what then happened from that is I was like, okay, I'm going to put together a short list of things. And of course, I planned to like have these all, ready and stuff. And then of course, everything went wrong. I put together a short list of things that are not a voice teacher's job. So the first thing on that list was to set a standard of right and wrong behavior or gender or singing style, etc. And the main one for me is to set a standard of right and wrong behavior. And so I expanded further on that in the next post, which is like, where I said it's not our job to set a standard of right and wrong, and it's definitely not our job to distribute consequences, rewards, or punishments to reinforce that standard. Not when it comes to students, any danged thing, including behavior. This philosophy that it is our job to enforce a standard of right and wrong is rooted in the idea of behaviourism. I mean, there are a bunch of other things too, but there is the behaviourism is an educational concept or an educational tool, learning philosophy, blah, 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 that says that we can reinforce, or we can sorry, I'm just going to look at here. Yes, that behavior, the way we act, is the result of conditioning. And so then we can reinforce as teachers, the way this gets applied in education is, and in parenting, gets applied super strong in parenting too. The way that we reinforce the behaviors that we see as positive is by rewarding those behaviors. And the way that we the way that we remove the behaviors that we see as negative is by punishing those behaviors. Hey, Liz Jackson Hearns, don't worry, I started late because of all the things. It's all good. So the way that we, so there's this, we understand that we can condition behavior by applying either punishment or rewards for behavior. So as someone pointed out in the comments on, I think in Instagram, Sarah, I think it was you, who pointed out that there can be a way to use and understand behaviorism and this idea of conditioning in the, as an educator, certainly. And yes, there absolutely can. And at the same time, just like the idea of having a calling, there can be so problematic because what tends to happen is we as the voice teacher or the person in the power over situation, the person who has the inherent power in the relationship or the situation, gets to decide which behaviors are most desirable and which behaviors are not desirable. And we get to decide which of those behaviors and why. And in general, then, what happens is we tend to, the person who is in that power over situation, tends to want to reinforce the behaviors that make it easier for me as the person with the power over to stay in control, and for me to stay in my position of power over, and for me to justify my position of power over, and we tend to reward the behaviors that do the same. Wait, I think I said those. Hopefully I didn't say the same thing twice. So we punish the behaviors that we see that we think threaten our ability to stay in control of the situation, threaten our ability to get whatever it is done in the situation, that threaten our ability to be in control, threaten our power over position. So we tend to want to punish those behaviors, and we tend to reward the behaviors that will allow us to stay in the power over position. So in a classroom situation, for example, what does this look like? This looks like I reward all of the kids who sit quietly at their desk, who pay attention in a specific way, and who do the work in a specific way. I mean, this is very simplistic. And then I give punishment for the kids who want to get out of their desks, who want to walk around, who want to talk, who want to do other things. So that's the way that looks in a classroom situation. So how do we justify this? Well, we justify this by saying, okay, but I have to keep control of my classroom, right? I have to do management, classroom management, right? And I have to, and no kids should be, yelling and disruptive. And also it's going to affect the learning of the other kids in the classroom if someone is disruptive or, kicking or whatever. And so there is a validity to that, of course. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Grade 5 French immersion teacher. Oh my gosh. Yes. All the power to you, friend. Oh my gosh. Thoughts and prayers going out to you. Right. But so this is the way that we justify this in the classroom management situation. And let me just put forward that the way that our classrooms and our educational system is set up right now, this is the most efficient way to manage the classroom. I mean, this is the way that we kind of have to manage classrooms, right? We kind of have to do it. It doesn't work. We know this. We know it's not like the most effective way to encourage learning. We know that lots of kids are not learning in the way that they could be, but this is what we have. These are the tools we have, right? How can we change that situation? By giving more support to teachers in classrooms so that they have the educational assistants, so that they have so they have smaller classes, so that they have the resources they need to be able to support kids to be able to learn well in the situation they're in, and also to have the support they need and middle school choirs, exactly. All of these group situations, we need more support for these group situations. Otherwise, what happens? Only some kids learn, of course, and lots of kids are rewarded for like smushing down their feelings and not having any, like, I was rewarded for being a good kid, but it wasn't really that I was a good kid in class, or was it just that I was really good at not expressing any feelings and or doing exactly what the teacher wanted? Was I just really compliant? Oh, I think I was just really compliant. Did I learn some stuff? Sure. But like other kids who aren't able to be compliant in the way we want them to be compliant, not going to be learning some things, and also going to be getting the message that they're bad kids all the time because they're punished all the time, right? Okay. So that's the behaviorism. That's like classroom group settings. We need more support for teachers. Otherwise, they don't have a choice. One-on-one voice lessons, on the other hand, is a whole other thing. So what happens is in our one-on-one voice lessons, we take this same approach in parenting as well. Whole other thing. Boy, I wish I had some of these thoughts in my head when I was parenting young children. So much I wish. I have regrets. Anywho, that's for me and my therapist to work out. All right. When we're in a one-on-one situation in the independent voice studio, for example, or in a teaching situation, we have way more choices. We're not trying to manage a big group of people. We're not trying to do classroom management. We have support. ourselves. We got one-on-one, right? So what happens though is that we take the ideas that have come down through our educational systems and through parenting books and all that stuff, and we apply them in our one-on-one lessons. So we take this behaviorism into one-on-one lessons, and we're like, okay, what do? I punish the behaviors I don't like that keep me in control of the lesson and allow me to deliver the information the way that I want to deliver it, the way that I feel like I'm supposed to, like how I owe this singer and or their parents. I owe them the thing because they're paying me, and so I reward the behaviors that mean that it feels like I'm giving the information and teaching in the way that is most effective, and I punish the behaviors that tell me that I'm not able to teach in the way that is most effective. So what does that look like? That looks like, and first of all, also let me just say, so behaviorism is the thing that we use to train dogs, right? And animals. So with animals, what do? We reward and we punish, and animals learn, okay, this behavior gets me more of this and this behavior gets me more of this, and so I will do this more and I will do this less. Animals learn that. They don't learn why. They don't learn what they want. They don't learn how to, like, they're animals, right? So they don't, and don't get me wrong, I love my animals and my kitties, they're like my favorite, and it's all good. And animals don't learn how to, like, regulate or have emotions or understand themselves, and that's okay, but that's why we apply behaviorism. Like, that's why we use behaviorism and rewards and punishment with animals. But we're working with human beings, right? So when I am applying this issue of when I'm taking the tenets of behaviorism and bringing them into the classroom, so reward and punishment, into the studio, I'm essentially rewarding behaviors that I think will work for me and punishing behaviors that I think aren't working. And the lens through which I am seeing the behavior is teacher-centric. What do I think is going to allow me to do what I'm supposed to do? And we hide it behind, we justify it with, like, well, if they're, you're paying me, and so I need to do what's best for them. I need to deliver this information. I need to do the teaching in the way that is best for them because you're paying me and I want to give you the best for your money, right? And we have the best of intentions. Let me just say, we have the best of intentions, right? We're like, I'm really working with them to, like, give them the best behavior and show them what's right and wrong and show them the consequences of their actions, right? I'm working with them to show them the consequences and to teach them lessons about winning and losing. Like, we're there to, like, this is my job. So I would posit that we just start to think, I am working with a human being here. So what are some of the behaviors that I think show that they are learning best and I'm doing my best teaching? What are some of those behaviors? So if those behaviors come up with some of the behaviors that we start to punish in studios, in one-on-one teaching, is the singer doesn't want to stand for the whole lesson. How can they learn to sing well if they're moving lots and they're, like, lying on the couch? Obviously, they can't learn to sing well if they aren't standing for the whole lesson. The singer is not looking me in the eye when I'm talking to them. How can that's so disrespectful. How can they possibly be learning if they're not looking me in the eye when I'm talking to them? I'm giving them valuable information, and everything in my culture and everything, the way that I was raised, tells me that the way I show that I'm paying attention, that the behavior that tells me that you're paying attention to me is that you're looking me in the eye when I say the thing. What are some of the other behaviors? Oh yeah, other behaviors are like, they never come to their lesson on time. So that is so rude and disrespectful of my time, and I need to teach them. I need to punish them for that behavior, and I need to hand out rewards for all of the students who do come to their lessons on time and respect my time and respect my, oh gosh, yeah. Are we back? We're back. And I need to reward, like do practice reward charts or whatever, right? I need to reward those behaviors because I am teaching them a valuable lesson. Practicing, Liz, yeah, I'm coming to that one. I'm teaching them a valuable lesson about showing up and showing respect and getting what you paid for. And I'm teaching them a valuable lesson. Practicing. The student is not, the singer I'm working with is not practicing the way that they should be practicing. And so the way that I told them how to practice, or the way that we worked out even together how to practice, where I told them what to do and how to practice, and they're not practicing every day, they're not practicing every other day, they're not whatever, they're not practicing the way that I think they should. And so the people who practice every day or whatever, who practice in the way that I think they should, they get rewards such as they get to sing more in the recital, they get to do X, Y, Z, they get, I don't know, practice chart rewards, blah, blah, blah. And the singers who don't do that, I say to them regularly, well, you know, you're not going to progress. It's too bad. You're really missing out. You're not going to progress. You're not going to go forward if you don't practice. So what do? I give them that, like, I'm so disappointed in you. Ooh. Yes! Liz is saying, ooh, dear teacher, who are you to decide whether the student or customer is getting appropriate value from a service? Exactly right. So this is where it all comes back to, right? What are the things that I think tell me that the singer I'm working with is learning in the way that I think they should be learning? I know. It is so passive aggressive, right? Yeah, it's so passive aggressive. Well, you're just not gonna, it's fine if you don't practice, but you're not gonna progress in the way that you could. You're just not gonna get to, or you're not gonna get the full value out of your lessons. So what does it look like when we start to examine that, and when we start to examine this like back and forth, and we start to like, how do we put other systems in place? What do we replace that with? So our way to replace that is our way to find a new system is to start to talk to the student you are working with and say, what are some of the things that mean that you feel like what are some of the ways that you will know that you're progressing in your lessons? What are some of the ways? In terms of like practicing, right? In terms of, if we come back to the practicing, we start to ask the singer, what is the thing that feels, what is the thing you actually want to get out of lessons? In terms of attendance, anytime you're thinking to yourself, I really want to like reward this behavior because it's the behavior that I like and it's the behavior that makes teaching them easier. And I really want to punish this behavior because I don't like this behavior and it makes it harder for me to teach them and I'm annoyed. Start to think through, why is that the behavior that I'm prioritizing? Am I prioritizing a behavior that just makes my job easier and actually isn't supporting learning in the student? And then start to ask some questions of the singers you're working with. I see it's really tricky for you to come to your lesson on time every single week. Let's talk about that. Is there a way is it a priority for you to be here for the full 20 minutes, for the full 60 minutes of your lesson? Or do you feel that you're going to get your money's worth in 45 minutes? If you're going to get your money's worth in 45 minutes and you feel like that's what you want, terrific. I don't care if you come 15 minutes late. I'm not going to go overtime. I mean, you're allowed to say, hey, I noticed that you come a half an hour late to your lesson every single time. Is there something I can do to help you, to support you to get here on time if that's what you want? If you don't care about missing half of your lesson every week, I don't care either. Like, why do you care, voice teacher? Is it really disrespectful? Or is it just someone who has ADHD? Like, or is it someone who has parents who have like 400 kids that they're driving around to various different things and then their cars and like, why do you care? Oh, Jackson Hearns, I love you. Yes, right? Why do you care so much? What is it? What is hurting? What is it really hurting in you? Along the same lines, there was also there were some comments about, it's a gift of time to me. Yes, yes. As a voice teacher, you can be like, hey, it's a gift of time to me. And also, as a parent who often has challenges about being on time, I feel terrible about it, right? Why do we care? Yeah, it's not a reflection of me as a teacher at all, right? So as a parent who often why do I get so triggered when they don't practice? Yeah, let's talk about that in just a second too. As a parent who often struggles to be places on time, and when my kids needed to be places on time, it's still a struggle for me to be on time for things, as Melissa, who may be watching right now, knows. It is basically being compassionate and having empathy towards the individual and their lives. It is exactly that, Karen, exactly that. It is really just treating people like they're actually people. As Liz is at the Voice Lab, they're doing a conference this summer called Pedagogy for the Whole Person, or the Whole Human. Yes, it's just like, look, it's a human being. So as someone who often has struggles with getting to places on time and getting my kids to places on time, I feel terrible about it. When I'm late, boy, does that bring up some shite in me from my childhood, from a lifetime of having issues. So it brings up a lot in me, right? I feel terrible. I not hate myself, but I get down on myself real hard. So what would it be like as voice ped for whole humans? Yes. So what would it be like for me to hear from a teacher, from a soccer coach, from a blah, blah, blah? What would it be like for me to hear, hey, it's your dime. If you feel like your kid is getting what they need to get out of this, and you're it's great. The rest of the team the rest of the team can cover it. That's fine. It's your dime. You're paying for it. What would that feel like for me as a parent? You know what else? That might actually make me feel more inclined to it might actually be a better motivation for me to get there on time. If I knew that I wasn't going to be super judged. What? I know. It's crazy. So you have the power to treat people as human beings, right? Yes. The practicing thing. Why do we care so much? There is that is such a good question. Why do we get so triggered when they don't practice, right? So I think part of the thing for me anyway was this big old should about how this reflects on me as a teacher, because, and this is one of the other things that I was talking about earlier, that's farther on in the list of things that isn't my job as a voice teacher. One of the things that's not my job as a voice teacher is to motivate you to practice, to motivate you to come to lessons on time, to motivate you to take advantage of all of the opportunities that I might offer or that the school might offer you. That's not my job as a voice teacher, is to make sure you're motivated to take advantage of all of the things that a school program might offer you to do, which I got into a conversation about earlier. Hey, Nick. So that's not my job. My job is not to motivate you, but we take it on. Why do we take on this job? Where we're like, if you don't practice, what is it? Why does it hurt us so much? It triggers us so much, I think, for me personally, triggers us so much because we feel like it's a reflection of our teaching. We feel like, and also, I was told, right? Yes, it's the ego. It's the ego, for sure, right? Yeah. I think we take that on. I 100% think we take it on. So we take that on as a reflection of our teaching and of our efficacy as a teacher, of our ability to teach, right? Because what we have learned and what we think is that if I'm a good enough teacher, if I'm really good at my job, then the singers I work with are also going to be, are also going to be super motivated because everything we do in the studio is super motivating because I'm really good at it. And so now they're going to go home and practice all the time, right? Yeah. all your 13-year-old students, right? So they're going to be super good at it, and so what is that a reflection of? Then they're going to be super good at singing, and their parents are going to feel like they're getting the most value because the parents are watching them practice at home, and so the parents are going to be like, oh yeah, getting so much value for these voice lessons that we're doing. Look at this kid singing all the time, practicing, woohoo. So then I feel like I'm offering the value, and this is a reflection, and also then they're going to get so much better, and also then they're going to do XYZ, and then I'm going to be the teacher of XYZ superstar. Oh, which is what Sarah's saying over there. This totally leads right back to the ownership feeling. So-and-so is a student from this studio, right? Yeah, exactly. And that's not why we teach. That it can be built into why we teach, right? It can be so built into why we teach. I'm teaching because I want to be the teacher of so and so I want to be recognized as like really good at teaching, and so like the thing that is going to tell me that I'm really good at teaching is so and so is practicing blah, blah, blah. It's not my job to motivate singers. Yeah, sarcasm. It's not my job to motivate singers. What my job is to support singers as they figure out what motivates them. That's my job. My job is to support them, talk to them, and figure out, hey, and also teenagers, man. You gotta let that go. You gotta let that go. Teenagers. But like, my job is to support singers to figure out what motivates them and what is the right level of practice for them and what practicing looks like for them, right? Teenagers, dang nabbit. What if the student feeling safe in my studio is what makes me a good teacher? I know. Yeah, there are some other questions that we can be asking, right? What if it's about having a space for a teenager? Karen is saying that too, right? Yeah, a common side effect of a supportive environment is motivation. Absolutely. Well, and also a common side effect of not being judged for doing things in a certain way, and also carrot and stick. A common side effect of not having carrot or stick in the studio is that people feel like I can do this the way that I want to do it. And also I'm praised and affirmed for doing things in the way that I want to do it. And also I get to do it in the ways that I want to do it, and that worked best for me. And also my teacher helped me to figure that out. Okay, we've got two things here too. Yeah, so Anne is saying you give them an inch and they swim all over you. Yeah, exactly. That's a hilarious mixed metaphor, and I love it. But yeah, you give them an inch, they take a mile, or whatever those sayings are, right? So that's built in our fear about people. That is built in our fear about how people are going to treat us, right? Like that is built in. That saying of like, well, they're going to take advantage of me if I do if I do the thing. That is your issue. That's your issue to work out with your therapist and your business coach, because some of our policies are set up from fear-based, and so we set up the policy to be punitive, and when we set up the policy to not be punitive or be rewards and punitive-based, then people stop taking advantage of you because they don't feel like you don't trust them. So that's something, you work that out with your therapist and your business coach, okay? Yes, work it out with those two people. Figure that out. You set up your policy based on you're afraid that someone's going to take advantage of you. If you set up your studio policies based on that, they're going to take advantage of you. Not because they're evil, but because they sense that you fear. And they're going to be like, well, I guess I have to do it this way. I have to lie to them, because if I don't lie to them and tell them, then I'm going to be charged for this lesson. If I don't lie and say that we had to do X, Y, Z, or she was sick, or blah, 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 then I have to, no, set up your policy so people don't have to lie to you. They won't lie to you if you set up your policies so they don't have to. Okay. The other one here too, it's super demeaning to let a student believe that if they don't practice enough or in the right way, then they can't say they're studying with you in the studio. And you were told that as a younger singer. Yeah, super demeaning. But also, how controlling is that? That is so bound up in that teacher's ego. Super demeaning. Yeah, real nasty stuff. Maria says, do you think parents should motivate their kids to practice, but without guilting and shaming? Yeah, so I think that parents have a role in supporting, same thing, in supporting kids in figuring out how to, yeah, I know, I'm really sorry that you experienced that, Liz says as well. Parents have a role in supporting the kids, their kids, in figuring out what looks like effective practicing for them, right? I don't think that parents should, same thing that I don't think that I don't think it's our job to motivate. I also don't think it's a parent's job to motivate their kid. Now that's getting into parenting, and maybe that's a whole other thing, and probably I don't need to do that right now. But what I think is that parents have the same role or a similar role, where we're talking through allowing folks to figure out what motivates them, supporting kids as they figure it out, and giving options, right? So parents giving options versus parents telling them what to do. I know this sounds like I'm a very permissive parent, but I have a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old. Feel free to learn from me, learn from my mistakes. Anne says, not studio related, but in my class I have a very permissive attendance and assignment policy, and I've actually had the best attendance this semester of any class I've ever taught. Yeah, even though they sometimes don't believe me that I will take late work, and they won't lose a letter grade if they miss a couple of days. And that has been my experience as well. That has absolutely been my experience as well. I actually don't have an attendance policy, so I teach my third year undergraduate course, or my undergraduate voice pedagogy course. You take it in third year. So I literally say at the beginning of the class, you are all, oh, thank you, Melissa. You are all adults. You are all adults. You've been in university now for like 2 years. This is your third year at least. You get to decide whether or not you want to come to class or not. It's your decision. You know what you need in order to be, to get the information you need. You've been doing this for a couple of years now. You know what you need. You get to decide. You're all adults. I don't have an attendance policy at all. They don't have to sign in. I don't take attendance. I don't care. I also provide recordings now, thanks to the pandemic. I'm now able to provide recordings. So the recording of the class goes up. And sometimes, yeah, I have low attendance in the class, and sometimes I have high attendance in the class, whatever. And also they can attend live over Zoom if they want to. I also allow them to attend, I offer that as an option. Because, and I have I don't have a very good idea actually of what attendance is. I mean, I kind of know, because I do, like, I watch and I ask them to sign in and stuff, not sign in, but I do ask them to like sign a piece of paper just so I kind of know, but I keep it in a drawer and I don't really look at it. So, and there's no grades for them. There's no participation grade at all. What I'm asking for in the class is that you start to make decisions about yourself. And I also say to them at the beginning of the class, look, I want to model normalizing that you have agency and you get to decide whether or not you want to come to class. And you get to decide whether it's going to be better for your mental health to come to class today, or to watch from your room, from your bed in your room, or to watch the recording, or to not do the recording at all. I would not recommend not doing anything. But I mean, if you feel like you're going to learn, great. If you can still participate in the discussion topics, if you're still, participating in the quizzes, all that kind of stuff, great. And I don't care. You coming to class has nothing to do with whether or not you're learning. So yes, this year was probably one of the most successful years in terms of learning, in terms of, the kinds of assessments that we're doing. And Ingrid is saying, yeah, love to, yes, right? So what I'm saying at the very beginning of the class is I'm saying, let's normalize the fact that you are all in third year or fourth year in an incredibly demanding program. 5 seconds. Instagram's gonna cut me off soon because let's see if I can get this plugged in. You're all in third or fourth year. You're all adults in an incredibly demanding program that you seem to have figured out so far. You're in third year. So I'm just going to normalize the fact, you coming to class has nothing to do with if you are learning. I wish I could stay. Yes, Dr. Shannon, you're killing it this week. Thank you. Yeah. Sarah's saying, two of my best students in one class, in terms of assessment submissions, hardly came to class. My expectations were clear, and they did the work on their own time. Yeah. Yeah. Also, my class is at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. Lots of people. Like, this is what I'm saying. And this is what I say to teenagers to everybody who comes into the studio. Hey, you have an incredibly demanding, busy life. There's a lot going on. I would very much like to just normalize that you can decide what you want to get involved with. And here are all the ways that you can get to the same end. Here are all the ways that you can learn the same things that don't mean that you have to be in class. Some of them commute, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to be in class at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. Physically in class at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. Okay, so we're normalizing some things. I think that we're not going to get to all the things. Let me just go real quick to health. What are healthy sounds? And the connection to racism. So I talked a little bit, a couple of other things on there, but so I talked a little bit about healthy sounds and the connection to racism. So real quick, because I do think that I need to stop soon, especially because my one Instagram's going to go off soon. What do we do? Where does this thing where I'm like, it's not our job to tell singers whether or not they are making a healthy or unhealthy sound. Let me just go back to the beginning here. So one of the things that happens in our Western classical training and just in our culture, one of the things that happens is that we have been told education, elitism, all the things tell us that the things that we hear in Western classical singing are the healthiest ways of singing. And the things that we tend to call unhealthy singing tend to be the things that have come out of native singing, out of and native ways of creating sound, and Black experience. So the sounds that you might hear at a powwow and the sounds that you might hear in a Black gospel church in the South, those sounds, I grew up believing that those sounds were unhealthy sounds. Like that you would 100% ruin your voice, something bad would happen, probably nodes, if you sang those songs, if I sang or used those sounds. And that attitude persists to this day. So a recent awards show, I saw a teacher talking about the singing, Lady Gaga singing at a recent awards show, and they said on their public platform that, is this kind of yelling what passes for singing today? I think it was something along those lines. With yelling being the descriptor used to describe an unhealthy way of singing. So the racism that is inherent in that, it's racist, it's classist, it's elitist, it's Western classical elitism, it's all of those things that is inherent in the sounds that we intuitively think are unhealthy. So the sounds that we intuitively, that we are like, yeah, absolutely, yelling like that, or singing the way that they sing in a powwow, for example, that kind of yelling, which is essentially belting, what we do in a belt sound, that kind of sound is bad because it's not Western classical singing, and so clearly it is unhealthy. So there's these roots of racism that lead us to think and to feel about certain sounds that they are unhealthy. The other side of that, and so my main issue here is that we do not often do not examine why we think certain sounds are unhealthy. And we don't examine, and we unilaterally assign that word, unhealthy or healthy, to sounds without the examination behind it and without understanding that maybe the reason I think this sound that I perceive to be pressurized or overly pressurized or maybe overly squeezed or a yell or whatever it is, or a growl or whatever it is, a scream. The reason I think that is because I do not understand the actual mechanics of that sound. And the reason I think that is because someone somewhere along the line decided that the sound that the Black person was making or the Native person was making was a bad sound simply because it was being made by a Black or Native person, by a person of color. And so somewhere along the line, that got really messed up and put together. And we still hear today. Right? We still hear today where we're like, oh yeah, people on Broadway, man, they're just belting their faces off and they're always in trouble. That is a myth. That is not true. That is untrue. There is a very similar injury rate between amongst high-level opera singers and high-level music theater singers. Very similar. Oh, thank you. Sarah's putting some stuff in the link over on Facebook. Very similar. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Sarah. I didn't know that about that book. So there is a very similar injury rate amongst high-level, well-trained singers that says that Broadway singers are not being injured at a higher rate than opera singers are. It's just not true. That is a myth. And that is also a myth that we like to take on because it proves our theory that like so-and-so isn't singing well and also they're going to be unhealthy. So are there habits and things that will allow us to be healthy longer and have and be able to sing well? Oh, Anne had nodules and never belted a note until a few years ago. Exactly, right? It's not the sound that is unhealthy. It's not the sound. So are there, like I talk about vocal health and hygiene all the time, and there are lots of folks out there, what are some of the best practices to keep your voice, to be able to use your voice sustainably over a long period of time? That is a whole other thing, right? That is health and hygiene. But that is also so intensely biased, the same way as we look at like health parameters in human beings. Health parameters in human beings change over like whether or not you're Black, whether or not you are fat, whether or not you are neurodivergent, whether or not you are able-bodied. The health parameters are different for who, depending on who I perceive you to be. Yes, they are. And this is the same thing in singing. So yes, there are some things that are likely going to contribute to you being able to use the sounds you want to use over a long period of time, sustainable. Yes, there are some things. And guess what? We get to, as voice teachers, work with singers to discover what those things are for those singers. Look, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, lived to be 100 years old, and he lived on his own until he was 100. I mean, with my grandmother, and he was still swimming and golfing and curling until he was in his mid-90s. Yeah, very, very healthy. He never drank water. He hated water. Like he would not drink water during no water anytime. He drank hard alcohol every single day of his life. Every day of his life. He had happy hour every day of his life. His main source of hydration was alcohol and the mixers that go with alcohol and coffee. He also sang in the choir as a tenor until he was in his early 90s in the church choir. He sang in the church choir until he was in his early 90s. He had the voice use he wanted to have. And yet, if he had gone to a voice teacher, they might have said to him, well, you're not drinking enough water. You are clearly not hydrated. Dude. I am not saying that there are not some health parameters, there are not some things that are going to help us to be healthier in terms of having access to the kind of singing we want to do over our lives. Absolutely. And there are definitely vocal health and hygiene things. Do we want to stay hydrated? Sure. But drinking 8 glasses of water a day isn't necessarily the thing isn't necessarily the only way to stay hydrated. Just FYI, it's not. So that also gets so again, what is the opportunity here? The opportunity is to support the singer we're working with to figure out what works best for them and their bodies and their goals and their singing goals. That's what our job is. Our job is not to tell them what is going to work best for their bodies. That's not our job. And our job is not to tell them, ooh, that's an unhealthy sound. Our job is to say, hey, is that a sound you want to make for the rest of your life? Then let's figure out what the least effort is in order for you to be able to make that sound for the rest of your life. How can we make that sound super sustainable for you? And also, oh, it appears that you are in a screamo band. That's amazing. I know that there are lots of people out there who sing screamo for their whole lives and don't develop nodes. So obviously, I'm not the person to teach that, but so-and-so down the road, I can tell you, will help you with that. Our job is not to say, ooh, super unhealthy sound, you have to be really careful. Our job is to say, hey, let's figure out how we can get you using this sound for the rest of your life. Let's figure it out. And you know what? Some sounds, they sound incredibly healthy, easy, free, blah, 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 all the things to us. And they're still getting nodes. There are wonderful sopranos who have nodes. What's her name? Natalie Dessay is a prime example of a wonderful singer, classical singer, who had, I think, 3 rounds of nodes, I think. She wasn't doing anything wrong. There was nothing wrong with her singing. You would never call her singing unhealthy, and especially because it's Western classical and she was just singing high. She still got nodes. Could she have done things differently? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Just like, okay. So our job is not to say, hey, that's a healthy or unhealthy sound. Our job is to say, hey, is that a sound you want to make for the rest of your life? Let's figure out how to do this in a way that is most efficient for your voice. And also, let's discover whether or not that sound, if it's a sound that is going to leave you hoarse, if it's a sound that is going to, give you, is going to leave you in a place where you can't use your voice in the way you would like to, then let's figure out what the dosage is of using that sound. So there may actually be a dosage that you can, or a dose that you can use that sound for. For example, I'm going to do a recording. So we're going to use that sound for like 20 minutes in the recording studio. And then when I'm on tour, I'm actually going to use this other sound and I'm going to lean into my mic. I'm just going to amplify it. We're going to use some production stuff, right? So there's a difference. You get to choose. You get to choose. We're not unilaterally deciding what is healthy and unhealthy for our students. And we're not unilaterally deciding what are healthy and unhealthy practices for our students. Yes, we're going to talk about health and hygiene, for sure. But we're going to talk about what health and hygiene means for you person, what that looks like in your body. I so deeply wish to wash compassion over the fear of the unfamiliar sounds, the fear of the connection between humans. You will make me cry, of the leveling out and deconstruction of supremacist and elitist narratives within voice. It's art, it is human, it is not dangerous. Yeah. That. I'm not going to talk about any of the other things here because on this thing because I've already gone farther than I need to, right? We're already at like an hour or something like that. Oh, 54 minutes. What do you know? 54 minutes. Let me just look at the list here. Set a standard wrong on my behavior. Telling a student what is unhealthy. Oh, ensuring a singer is industry ready. Oh, maybe I'll talk about that next week. Deciding what is appropriate repertoire sounds, behavior dress for a student, and motivating a student. So I did talk about motivating. Yeah, it's not our job to ensure that singers are industry ready. Not even in academia, it's not our job. I'll just throw that one out there and just leave it. You can have fun with that. Not even in academia. It's not my job to make sure that you're industry ready. There are coaches that is actually their job, to like coach you and help you figure out how to, fit into the boxes and to do the things that you need to do in order to like fit into the industry. Yeah, there are folks, but if you're a voice teacher in academia, just gonna throw that out there. It's not your job to make sure they're industry ready. We can talk more about that if you want. All right. Okay, yeah. 2% on my iPad, which is where I am hosting Instagram, so I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to just like let that go and say goodbye. Have fun thinking through some of these things. I also hope there were some questions, on the socials about some of the things, clarification. Hopefully that's some clarification around some of these concepts, and hopefully that, allows for some clarification. Oh, let me say one last thing. One of the issues in one-on-one voice lessons, when I talk about right and wrong and consequences for behavior, is people say, yeah, but, someone was really rude to me. They kicked me. They they were yelling at me. They refused to do X, Y, Z. To be clear, there is no situation in which you as the voice teacher should be kicked, hit, yelled at, treated disrespectfully in that way, in a harming way. There's no situation where that is okay. And if you find yourself in that situation, I would say that you likely have not done enough before you got to that situation to ensure that situation didn't happen in the first place. So consider some of the things that led up to you being in that situation, and to that student feeling that they have to yell, or they have to kick, or they have to, call you names, whatever. Consider the things that have led up to that position where you're in the position of having to kick someone out because of behavioral issues. Consider what led to that. I can almost guarantee that there are some things that could have been done in advance that would have meant that you don't find yourself in that situation. I am not blaming you, the victim. I'm not blaming victims. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying start to consider what are some of the things that you can do that will set up the studio and you and your relationship with the singers you work with, such that those things don't actually have to come to a head. Such that the student, there is a valving mechanism, if you will, where the student and you, and perhaps the parents, if that's the vibe, are working together to know when the student is at 5 out of 10 in terms of what they can handle and where they are emotionally, so that you can start to work in a way that they never have to get to 10 out of 10. Something to consider. Yeah. And if that's not an option for you to like set that up and to like think through that kind of thing, that's fine. Be the adult in the situation and say, you know what, this isn't working. You're not the student for me. You be the adult in the situation, right? You say, it's not the student for me. I don't know how to handle XYZ, and do it before they're at 10, right? Notice the things when they're at 5, when the behavior and the things that are where they're emotionally dysregulated, where all the things are happening when they're at 5. Notice those, and that's when you say, if you're not able to like handle it, if these things are not working for you, great. Be the adult in the situation and say, hey, this isn't working for me. Here are some other voice teachers who may, I would love for you to work with. Send them out at 5. Don't wait till it's at 10. Mm-mm. You're not in a classroom. You don't have to have students in your classroom. It's just you and your business and your teaching. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Here we go. Have a great weekend. Ending there. How do I end over here? There we go. Boop.